Books and the Man. Mr. Elkin Mathews from the January 16, 1920, issue of the Bookman's Journal and Print Collector. Pleasant atmosphere, almost as of another more gracious and less commercial age, lingers about number 4A, Cork Street, the business premises of Mr. Elkin Mathews, who has done so much to encourage the welfare in England of Belles Lettres. If there is no spacious stateliness, there is a far rarer and more precious homeliness and the true atmosphere of books and bookmen. Mr. Mathews is a distant connection of that great man of letters, Edwin Arnold, and an ancestor in the direct line, held the position of clerk of the check at Gravesend and was a friend and correspondent of Samuel Pepys. His own father was a lover of books, but otherwise Mr. Mathews can find no precedent for embracing literature as a profession. It was natural, therefore, to ask what led him to adopt publishing as a career. His reply, so characteristic of the man, is best given in his own words. I always felt very strongly that if one was unable to achieve distinction in letters oneself, the next best thing was to be the means of giving to the world the work of others more generously endowed. Exeter was the scene of Mr. Mathews' first venture. He established himself there in 1884 and published several books relating to Devon. In the summer of 1887, he removed to London and took the house in Vigo Street which had previously been in the possession of Mr. Dunthorne, who had given it the name of the Cabinet of the Fine Arts. He became known almost at once for the class of work for which he is now so well known, and from here he began the issue of that famous series of 16mo booklets, many of which are now exceedingly rare, whose general title, the Vigo Cabinet Series, was suggested by the name of the house from whence they came. 100 of these little volumes, described as an occasional miscellany in prose and verse, appeared in about 12 years. Many of them take today a notable place in the history of books. Number 13 was Ballads, John Masefield's second book. Then followed a collection of the overflow from W.B. Yeats, The Secret Rose, entitled The Tables of the Law, and The Adoration of the Magi. Number 14 was a volume by Synge, Shadows of the Glen and Riders to the Sea, and number 29 was Poems in Prose, translations from Baudelaire by Arthur Symons. Mr. Lane entered into partnership with Mr. Elkin Mathews in 1887, and when the golden age of the 90s began, the two great bookmen took a prominent part in the literary activities of the period. Book after book was issued from Vigo Street introducing the first fruits of this later Renaissance, bearing the names of such men as Arthur Symons, John Addington Symonds, Francis Thompson, William Watson, John Davidson, Lord de Tabley, and so many others, not to speak of the Yellow Book or the Gypsy, among those remarkable periodicals that were such a feature of the period, and to which the most brilliant men of the day contributed. In 1894, Mr. Lane left the firm to establish himself on his own account. Mr. Mathews remained to carry on the work so auspiciously begun. Nor must the name of Lionel Johnson be omitted, for all his early work was published by Mr. Elkin Mathews, amongst whose most valued treasures are a number of ancient volumes once owned by the poet in his Winchester or university days. In 1912, Mr. Mathews' landlords, the Royal Geographical Society, moved into more commodious quarters. The old premises were sold, and, the new owners requiring the site for their own purposes, Mr. Mathews found himself compelled to seek a fresh abode. This he found in Cork Street in his present premises. And Mr. Mathews owns a rare little duodecimo, bound in grey boards, entitled A Morning in Cork Street, or Raising the Wind, London 1822, showing it as the Mecca of young sprigs and men and women about town in times of temporary financial embarrassment, who resorted to the moneylenders of Cork Street, bitterly satirized in this musing little volume under the name of Messrs. Holdfast and Gripall. These gentlemen, who besides lending money, accepted on deposit the savings of well-to-do servants and tradespeople, it is needless to say, never failed to convert their clients' temporary embarrassment into permanent penury. Such was Cork Street at the close of the 18th and the beginning of the 19th centuries. It cannot very often happen, one imagines, that cargoes of books are jettisoned and then recovered. Yet this happened to Mr. Elkin Mathews' last parcel of new books. They had been printed in Scotland and shipped to London by the SS Starley of Leith. Coming down the North Sea, she got into difficulties owing to heavy weather and was lost sight of. The next that was heard of her was that being in imminent danger, it was decided to jettison several bales, among them some belonging to Mr. Mathews. However, on the 1st of January a message was received announcing the safety of the precious bundles. May it be of happy augury. Written by Sermons.